You're listening to The Building Code. I'm Tom Houghton.
I'm Paul Worth.
We'll dive in with our guest in just a second, but first I want to tell you about an exciting new offering that we have called On-Site Consulting. That's right, Buildertrend is now offering On-Site Consulting. It's a customized training based on your needs for your entire team in your workspace. Our team of highly trained coaches will come to you and train your people on Buildertrend best practices. If you want to increase your team's skills in our programs quickly and efficiently, then On-Site Consulting may be the perfect fit for you. Of course, you can head to our show notes at buildertrend.com/podcast and click on the link for On-Site Consulting to learn more. Today on our episode, we have a special guest joining us all the way from Washington, D.C., from the company Ipsun Solar. Today, we're joined by Herve Billiet.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. In Washington, D.C., so a lot of things going on in the city.
Of course. Nation's capital, always lots of buzz happening there.
Yeah. You know, the company name and your name got a lot of research from Tom there, so I'm glad we're making him work a little bit.
It's true.
Ipsun Solar.
Ipsun Solar.
I love it.
Maybe let's dive in first and let's talk about the name. I know you mentioned it's a Latin name, so maybe you can give us the background on it.
Yeah, there is a little story behind it. So first we started to be called Smart Power. Well, that wasn't a very smart decision because there's a lot of companies with the name Smart in it. And so we had to change that. And so we changed it to Ipsun Power. Actually, I Googled how you say smart in Latin, and Google told me that it's Ipsun. And I had a little bit of Latin when I was younger. I was like, that's not correct. Ipsun actually means yourself. And then I thought about it more. Well, actually, we install solar panels so people create their own power, your own power. So being called Ipsun Power, that makes sense. And then now we call Ipsun Solar because, you want to make sure your name has solar so people can find your services. Because when we were called Ipsun Power, we had a lot of people calling us in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. like, I need to pay my power bill. It's like, well, you just called a solar company. So more than happy to come install solar, but we had to change it because we were overloaded with people wanting to pay their bills in the middle of the night. And I'm the guy that's still 24/7 on our phone line. So if you want to annoy me, just call me in the middle of the night. I'll pick up.
I love the dedication there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
We should ask all of our guests how they came up with their name.
I like that.
Because that's a really cool story.
That's a great story.
So how long you guys been in business?
About 3 years now.
3 years?
Yeah, and you've got a team of people there. But I want to start by talking a little bit more about your background because you've been dancing around the solar industry for a while. Is that correct?
Yeah, dancing is correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
He's a dancer.
So I'm an engineer by education, master's in electromechanics. That's not something that exists in America, but electromechanics is actually a good degree. It's like taking half of the electrical class and half of the mechanics. So you don't know anything for sure, but you know half of electricity and half of mechanics. And the reason why they did that is because most electrical components have a mechanical component. And a lot of mechanical components have an electrical one. So you needed somebody that knew a little bit about both, nothing for real, but just to combine those that knowledge. And little did I know that a solar energy system has a mechanical component to attach to different roofs in many different ways, and also has an electrical component. So it was actually a perfect education for that.
That's awesome.
But what got me into the solar industry was I designed the first Belgian solar car. It's a good 15 years ago. That's how I got into solar.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second.
Here we go. Tom's got a Tesla, and it's just cannot go a minute without hearing about it. So, all right, take it away, Tom.
I just want to know more about the solar car that you built. So what did it look like? I mean, do you have like pictures that you could share with us and we can put them up on the show notes page afterwards?
Yeah, totally. It's so the idea came from a student at our university, and at the university they built a car in the Netherlands. It wasn't Belgium, but one of the students at a university joined the team in the Netherlands to build a solar car. And there is a championship every 2 years. People all over the world build a solar car, and then they ship it to Australia and they race it. And then that race over time, first was a bunch of amateurs, and you just have an ordinary car, slap a solar panel on top and call it a solar car. And then as things progress over time, just like industries mature.
Did you actually end up racing, I assume, too?
Yep, we shipped the car to Australia. I remember talking to DHL and like, can you please ship it for free? And then they actually eventually said yes. So
Wow.
that was very nice. So not 15 years ago, I'm still thanking sponsors. Like I just mentioned, DHL, and there are other ones that we still sponsor. Um, so Makita, for example, is one of tool manufacturers, right? And
Yeah.
the company I like to buy Makita drills and impact drills. We buy a lot of them. And I still ask my guys to buy Makita just because Makita helped us at the time. They gave us a catalog, like you just get whatever you want. And so many years later, I'm still a Makita fan because of that. So
That's great.
There you go. Let's fast forward to today. And so you guys are now based in Washington, D.C. You kind of service the whole DMV area there, correct?
yeah,
And
it's three states. Yeah.
how many installs are you doing? Give us some more background on that.
Yep. So we've grown quickly. The solar industry in America is really maturing fast. It's picking up. When I did my first residential systems like a good 10, 15 years ago, it was really expensive. And you basically had to find like a hippie with money, like somebody that really wanted solar for whatever reason. And that was it. And there were not too many hippies with money that I could find. So I was living in Alabama at the time. That was my first solar company. So I had just 3 solar installations in a full year time. That was it. So couldn't run the business. Now, many years later, I started Ipsun, Smart Power, right? And then in 3 years' time, we grew from just me and my co-founder, Joe, where we just did everything ourselves, like the engineering, the design, the sales, just everything ourselves, to now we 20 people full time, and we're still hiring aggressively now.
That's awesome.
And what's a typical install for you? Is that residential, commercial? Do you have a typical job that you get?
Yep. We work in 3 different markets: Virginia, DC, and Maryland. So they're all a little bit different. So to answer your question about a typical job, I would say like a standard residential. That's our bread and butter, installing residential systems. We do that every day now. And then we do also commercial. We also have an utility scale project going on. So those are those massive, big fields that you see. So that's really changing it. So when we just got started, I mean, you install a few solar panels, you're like, why am I doing this? As a mission, we want to fight climate change, but like installing a few solar panels is not going to make a dent in anything. Just like with a solar car. But the idea with that solar car was to start doing some lobbying. I personally went to see the energy minister at the time in Belgium and said like, we should do something about climate change. I'm not sure that they listened at the time. But anyway, it was like a statement of what solar can do. And so now installing solar panels, 1 or 2 panels is not going to make a difference. But you do this over and over again every single day of the year with more and more crews and more people that can afford it, because the price of solar just crashes. Like it dropped 90% in the last 5 years. So whereas in the past, everybody just plugs in their home to the grid, right? And you just pay utility bills every month. Everybody pays them. That's it. That's an utility. Just like you pay your phone bills every month and you pay utility bills every month. And electricity, everybody uses it. And there was not really an option. Whereas now, you might as well put solar panels on your home and produce your own power. You don't have to pay an utility anymore. So
Yeah, it makes
eliminate
sense.
bills. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's great to point out, like, again, how the industry is changing so much, and solar is becoming way more accessible because of price dropping, but also the panels themselves are getting more efficient, correct?
Yeah.
So that way,
Yeah.
because I'm thinking about Washington, D.C. weather. I'm thinking about Omaha, Nebraska weather. It's not California where you've got sunshine 300 days out of the year plus, right? But you're still able to produce a lot of good energy off of these solar panels, even in climates where they're not, seeing the sun every single day of the year.
That's true. Now, let's keep in mind that the first big nation to install solar, like big time, was actually Germany. It's not too sunny over there. So we in Washington, D.C., we have 40% more sun than you have in Germany. So even your worst case system that you install in Washington, D.C., is still going to produce way outproduce a system in Germany. So a lot of people ask also about shading, like, hey, I have a tree here. Would that be problematic? So you would have a tree that literally covers 40% of your array before, and you would still be the same as like a perfect system in Germany. And like you said, like the industry is changing, is maturing. So 10, 15 years ago, solar panels were so expensive that whenever you install it, it was an optimum system. The solar panels were oriented towards the south. It was like the perfect system. No shading, no nothing. And now solar panels are so much cheaper, and the price of a solar project is just labor and insurance and design work. It's not just the solar panels anymore. So now we attach solar panels to roofs like that are east facing, west facing, and we start even installing north facing, which just a few years ago was like, if you did that, you were like a moron. Like, you don't know about the solar industry. Like, that's a no-go. You don't do that. But now solar panels are so cheap that once you take on a project, once you start construction, you're on the roof. You're like, if you do one side of the roof and the other one is facing north and not like a steep incline, might as well put them on the north face. So the industry is changing rapidly. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your industrial project you said you're working on. Is that to do something like community solar?
We would like to. The one I mentioned, like a 5 megawatt, is in Virginia. Community solar is not legal, not authorized.
Oh.
Yeah. And then, although the utility has a community solar project in mind, but normally a community project is a couple of people get together, pay for a solar company to install solar on a field or wherever they can find it, and then you can distribute that power to people that want to pay for it, right? That's a community solar. People get together, pay for solar, and then they can distribute the energy to whoever wants to pay for it. And that's allowed by state legislations, like Maryland, for example, that's allowed. Now in Virginia, it's not allowed, so you can't do it. And then there is something called community solar in Virginia, but it's the utility that owns the system, gets it built, and then upcharge people to use solar power, whereas solar power is actually cheaper. Little maintenance, so it's usually cheaper than regular power. But then the utility here calls it community solar power, does everything themselves and upcharge customers for it. So it's not entirely, they just rebrand, they use the branding of community solar for their own.
Take us through the economics of it all. And what I mean by that, we'll just shoot for the middle. So if I own a home and I don't know, 6 panels or whatever, you let me know what that is. And what does that save me? What does that cost me? And do the states have different, what would they call those? Rebates?
Yeah, there's a federal rebate.
There's a federal rebate and then there's state?
Depending on the state. But
okay, so take us through that, a little bit of that.
Yep. So you have the federal tax credit. That's a 30% federal tax credit on the entire solar energy project. So whatever the cost of the project is, you can claim 30% the next year that you file your taxes. Now, a little hint, that 30% is going to go to 26% next year and 22%, and then it's 0 for residential projects, or it stays flat at 10% for commercial projects. Being in Washington, D.C., we'll see if we can change that or not. We'll try.
You guys are on the front lines there, doing the work for us.
Pretty much, yeah. So that's the federal tax credit, and the goal of that tax credit is really trying to give the industry a way to mature faster. And that federal tax credit is, when we fill out the form, you'll see it's about fossil fuel, gas, and a lot of other stuff, including wind and solar. So it's not something that's created for solar. It's like there for plenty of other industries, and solar is just part of that. That's one thing. And then each state has some different incentives or regulations. The easiest one is Virginia. They don't have anything. That's easy. There's nothing. Then you have states like Maryland and D.C. and plenty other states across the United States. It's that they provide an incentive. Usually it's something called a REC, Renewable Energy Credit. Or when it's specifically for solar, it's called a Solar Renewable Energy Credit, like a SREC. And it's a market, just like the stock market, that fluctuates in price. And for every megawatt hour of power that you produce, you receive one SREC. And that SREC can have a value usually it's around, well, the market fluctuates, it's all over the place. But depending in which market you are, in DC, it's around $250 for one SREC. In Maryland, it's around $20 now. Early this year, it was around $8. So it goes up, it goes down. And in Virginia, there is no market at all. It's 0. So every time you produce that power, you can sell it. And so it's an incentive that the state puts in that says, like, we want to have more clean power, and they force utilities to pay for that. So the utility has an option. Either they install their own thing and they do something about the environment, or they pay a fee to everybody that did install solar for them.
Okay. And what's a typical install in one of your states?
Yep. Usually you're looking at around an 8 kilowatt system. An 8 kilowatt system is 8,000 watts. Let me quickly take a calculator here. 8,000 watts, and our typical solar panel is 215 watts panel, so that's around 25 panels that you put on a home.
And
That's our average.
does that power the home 100% throughout the year? What does that look like?
Usually not, and that's because people consume just a whole lot of power, and that homes usually are like 2 stories high, and so you consume a lot of power on like an actual small surface. So solar is fantastic, and the efficiency goes up all the time, but you need a surface for that. Usually, the limiting factor is the size of the roof. So you look at a home, and there's only so many solar panels that can fit on that roof. That's it. That's usually the determining factor.
Do you guys, in your sales process, do you have your own salespeople?
Yeah.
So do you guys go through like a whole ROI thing with them? Hey, if you spend X amount here, you're going to save X amount per year. That accumulates over the years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's many years ago. I had to find that hippie with money, right? That was our typical customer, right? Yeah. Right now, it's just anybody that pays an utility bill and that wants to save money. So it's like pretty much everybody. So it's not like the reason why people go solar is not just to save the planet. Like it's nice that it's in people's mind. Like, oh yeah, that's nice to have. But the determining factor, honestly, it's the money. You save money, and you don't have to do anything. Like, once you install solar, there's no maintenance, there are no moving parts, you don't hear it, there's no smell to it. So at first, people are excited about having solar, and then you see a little app and you see how much you produce. And then after a while, like, well, you produce power every day. So after a while, people kind of get bored by it, which is a good thing, right? It works every day and produce power for you every day. You don't have to do anything. So after a while, people stop checking their app because it's going to be the same as the previous day. It's going to produce power, same as the previous day.
Yeah.
Are you doing one product, or do you have a couple different options for people?
Yeah, we have different options, but we try to minimize it so that we have a standard solar panel and then a high efficiency solar panel. There's a price difference, of course. And actually, in the back here, you see this black thing? That's this all standard solar panel that we install. And just like you have a general contractor that buys the bricks to go build his home, we just buy solar panels to go. Then we design and we go install the solar energy system.
Yeah, that's one I saw. I think you made me watch this from your idol, Elon Musk. He did a whole thing on the like roof panels, like the actual tiles, not these huge things where the entire roof is solar. Is that something that we should expect in the near future, or would that be exclusive to Tesla, or is that going to be something that everybody can do? We
are a Tesla Powerwall certified company.
Okay.
But not that solar is not part of what we could install. But knock on wood, I hope he succeeds. It's a fantastic product. Right now, it's about, I think, 7 or 8 times more expensive than what we do. So price-wise, not quite there yet. You still need to find, I guess, that not a hippie with money, but at least somebody that really wants a really nice solar energy system.
Yeah.
The price difference is right now just massive.
It does speak to one of the issues with solar, which is, I mean, for lack of a better term, it's kind of ugly. You know, or it used to be when they used to be really big and clunky. They've gotten much better, but there is definitely an aesthetic it adds to your roof that some people may not want. So that like these tiles, and I don't know, put the YouTube video on the show notes.
We'll put it.
I mean, it's a really cool.
Yeah, it's good. The whole industry is trying to elevate. Like you said, the panels are advancing, and we've got Herve on video, and so we can see this black panel, which doesn't look like the old like Johnny 5 panels where they're like multicolored. And
Johnny 5?
Johnny 5? No, you don't know that reference?
What is that?
The movie Short Circuit. It features a robot called Johnny 5. Anyway, panels are making a lot of improvements, and so I think visually it is getting more appealing. And also future buyers, when they're looking at homes, if they see a home that obviously is kind of a net zero or at least has a lower bill, that's definitely a good selling point for a future owner.
Yeah, I'm into that. Are you exclusively renovation remodeling, or are you doing some new construction as well?
We're doing some new construction, but there are more existing roofs to be worked on to add solar than brand new construction, at least where we operate.
Sure. So. Let's talk about how you're managing your projects, because obviously you've got this big team now. You've got a lot of stuff going on. It's a the industry is growing. Let's talk a little bit about how you're overseeing all of that.
So Buildertrend is a big part of that. I just checked right before these podcasts, we have 137 ongoing projects. So I'm glad Buildertrend keeps track of that for us.
Yeah.
And when we use Buildertrend, like it's a pretty large software, but it doesn't look like overwhelming. So it's very manageable. And there are some parts of Buildertrend that we don't use, and then we start using it over time. There are some parts of Buildertrend that are still a bit unknown to us. And there are other sections that we use like continuously. For example, one thing that we do that a key differentiator compared to a lot of other companies is we send out a weekly update to our customers. And every Tuesday, an entire ops team sits together and we go over all our projects. So I just mentioned we go over 137 projects on Tuesday. And we send we use those daily logs that we send out. And then it's not just for us internally to know where we are with all our projects, but then if you just have a little toggle like inform customer, then they will see that update too. So we went from having just internal updates every week to just inform the customer. So we just write it a bit nice, like in full sentences, but it's very short and people appreciate it. Like many times they're like, oh, thank you. I sometimes things take a long time in the solar industry where you're waiting on permits because yes, we pull permits for everything and we do everything according to the books and every regulation. And sometimes it takes time. And so if you don't really have any progress, you're waiting on the permit for a few weeks in DC, sometimes a month, 2 months. It's good that the customer sees like, okay, they still know about me. They didn't forget. It's like being the same update on 3 weeks in a row, like waiting on permits. But that one little sentence makes all the difference, knowing that the customer is aware that we are working on it.
Yeah, that's great to hear. We talk about that all the time. I think even on these airwaves, we've talked about how we recommend once a week summary to the homeowner, no matter how much it is. A touch point's a touch point, and they appreciate that. So it's good to confirm that you guys are applying that.
Absolutely. That's a key. I mean, this is super important because in the end, if a customer is happy, it's because there's been a lot of communication too.
So Herve, we've covered a lot of stuff today. Just to try to wrap it up and kind of look towards the future, what are you seeing in the industry? What are you excited about? We talked a little bit about the Tesla solar tiles for the roof. You know, what's something that you're really excited about that we're going to see coming down the line to consumers?
I think batteries. Batteries going to be part of just every solar installation that we do. We sell a lot of those Tesla Powerwalls. That's one thing. At the same time, what I'd like to see in the solar industry is that solar becomes part of just a regular construction. It's part of every architect designing a home. And Buildertrend is a construction software. I don't think a lot of solar companies use it, but solar is construction. And so I think it should be integrated in just a regular construction project. And solar, I think the exciting part to me about the solar industry is that solar becomes just another construction business, like another one. And so it would be part of the general industry. So it's kind of strange to answer. The most exciting piece is that it becomes really boring and regular. That's my answer, actually.
That's great, though.
Good.
We'd love to have you in our space.
Yeah, more mainstream.
That is construction.
Yeah, that's good. Awesome. Well, Herve, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. We obviously covered a lot. We appreciate you bringing your industry experience and sharing that with us. And don't forget to check out our show notes page where we'll list a link to your website, to your company. We'll link in those videos to the other products we talked about as well, just so you can check them out. And thanks for sharing your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I didn't speak enough about Buildertrend. I really wanted to get the message across that you guys are like a really fantastic software. So
that's great.
It's fantastic. So
we said, we appreciate that, but I think the listeners love hearing about your unique story, and you definitely have a good one. Yeah. You probably shouldn't have dropped that you're like a authorized Tesla dealer, because Tom's going to personally email you questions now. So I just get ready for that.
What kind of car do you drive?
Chevy Volt.
See, there you go. Hey, he's in the EV family. That's good.
If he throws out diesel Suburban, that would be the curveball of the year, you know?
Okay, Herve, we're going to let you go. Thanks so much for being on the show today. Love what you heard? Don't forget to rate and subscribe to our podcast so you can hear from more guests that will benefit your business. Also, please check out our show notes page for more information on what we discussed on this episode. You can find it at buildertrend.com/podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Building Code.
Appreciate you.